I'm Elizabeth Chu, Executive Vice President and Chief Curator at James Madison's Montpelier. And I'm going to talk to you about why French furniture was fashionable in the federal period of American history. Now, the federal period refers to the first 20 years or so after the creation of the American government in 1789. So it really refers to the 1790s and the 18 teens. And during this time period, as Americans were figuring out really for the first time what it meant to be a nation, we find that elite people in their homes are very partial to French furniture. Number one, because it's not British, and number two, because it features the neoclassical style, which the founding generation saw as very as an important way to communicate ideas they had about their new country. Now, when George and Martha Washington were leaving Philadelphia, remember the capital of the nation was in Philadelphia for all but the first few months of Washington's term when it was in New York. When George and Martha Washington were leaving Philadelphia to go back to Mount Vernon after his second term, they were selling off a lot of their household goods, which was very common even in early Washington, D.C. after 1800. So Dolly Madison, who was then living in Philadelphia as the wife of James Madison, a U.S. congressman, purchased 6 French chairs from George and Martha Washington, and they later graced this beautiful room, the drawing room here at Montpelier. And I want to talk a little bit about why these particular chairs would have been something that Dolly Madison found desirable. Number one, which I think is a really lovely idea, they would have, to her, symbolized the way that the Washingtons had created the idea of the president and first lady, the idea of what presidential entertaining and presidential style could mean. And then second of all, the chairs themselves carried with them in their ancient classical references certain values that the founding generation held. So look at these chairs, look at the gently tapering fluted legs of the chair, and at the carved rosettes on the top of the seat, on the seat rail at the top of the leg. So you'll probably see that the legs of the chair remind you of the columns on ancient temples, which were then translated into the fluted columns in neoclassical architecture, like the architecture that people like Madison and Jefferson adapted to their own homes. But also keep in mind, this is the time that the city of Washington, D.C. is being built, and it's the time when the designers and builders in D.C. are also adapting neoclassical style for both public buildings and homes, domestic buildings. So a reference to ancient architecture, even in a chair. And then the rosette carving also refers to knowledge of all kinds of ancient decoration, both in architecture, in relief sculpture, and in particular in wall paintings that were discovered in the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum in southern Italy, and then images from those were published widely and became incredibly popular inspirations for neoclassical design in everything from carpets to all kinds of details on decorative arts. So in a French chair, Dolly Madison would have had something that A, was not British, B, was a reminder of the precedents that George and Martha Washington had set, and number 3, referred to the ancient past where the members of the founding generation looked for inspiration and ideas about how to be a good, small r Republican citizen.